Hey everybody, welcome. This is Amplify's live information and Q&A session. Today is Monday, March the 30th. I'm Josh Robbins, and to my left here I have the president of Amplify, Brent Allen. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. I want to remind everybody that this is an interactive live session. So on YouTube there in the chat box, feel free to post any comments, any questions you have. We're going to do our best to, as we go through this presentation, to keep an eye on those and answer as many of those questions as we can. If for some reason we don't get to your question, please feel free to reach out to us. At the bottom of your screen there, you'll see an email address for connect@amplifygrowth.com. We'd be happy to connect with you afterwards. And while you're at it, go ahead and make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel so that you can stay in contact with us and all the most up-to-date information as we've got coming out with the ever-changing climate of the world that we're living in today. Brent, I tell you, it has been a crazy few weeks. It feels like a lifetime ago that we were sitting here talking about the Families First Act and all the provisions of that and what's going on. But it was just a couple weeks ago. So the speed with which information is coming out and changing, it's almost overwhelming. What are you seeing out there? Talk to us about all the stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting few weeks. If we even put the health-related issues aside from a legislative and financial, from that angle for small businesses, it has just been mind-blowing. So we started several weeks ago with the president coming out with a $50 billion disaster recovery loan program, which was followed by some big Fed moves. And then we ended up with the Families First Act. And then subsequent to the Families First Act being signed into law, we ended up with the DOL guidance for that coming down last week, which that actually doesn't even go into effect until this Wednesday, April the 1st. So everybody's dealing with that. Then we had the CARES Act come on the heels of that, and the CARES Act, impacted unemployment. It impacted the new SBA 7A loan program. It impacted. It's going to send checks directly to individuals, as well as there are a couple of other programs in there for deferral and or credits on payroll taxes. So a lot going on. It's certainly lay on top of that, everybody being able to talk to their bank and do their projections, it really has been tough to navigate. We've had a team here that's been working almost around the clock to try to keep track and understand how all these things interact. We've got a lot of questions over the last several days, and that's the reason why we wanted to do this session.
So. Yeah, absolutely. So lots of stuff coming out. Obviously, on everybody's mind right now is the CARES Act, which you just mentioned. There's lots of different components to that act. I know you highlighted several of them there, and today we're going to concentrate and focus on some of the ones that really are affecting businesses and organizations, and what can we take advantage of on that front. Probably the hallmark piece and the thing that everybody's asking about is the payroll protection program and the money that's available and the loans that are coming out through the SBA. So give us some high level, what is this program? What did the government put in place? Give us some high level points about how this thing sort of functions and works.
Sure. So the biggest question on the employers' minds that I've been talking to over the last several weeks is whether they're to pull the trigger from a layoff standpoint as revenue has decreased. And that's really the reason why the Congress and the president signed the bill. That's the reason why they put this act in place, is to try to incentivize employers to maintain their employment over the next couple of months. So this program is technically a loan through the 7A program. It doesn't require any collateral. It doesn't require any personal guarantees. It is available to folks that are under 500 employees, as long as they were in business on February 15th and they do have payroll expense. They're going to be eligible. Really the big thing about it is the fact that it's a forgivable loan. There's some nuances to it, but roughly you can take 2.5 times your payroll cost, your average payroll cost over the last year. That's going to be the loan amount that you're eligible for. And then you're going to be eligible for forgiveness after the covered period, which ends on June 30th. Basically, it turns into a grant. One of the really interesting things is it is going to be a non-taxable event. So that loan forgiveness is not going to be taxed at the end of the year.
Okay, so let me back you up here because this is fascinating, and everything that we've been reading and what's coming out is great. So when you hear loan, and the first thing you think of is this something I'm going to be able to qualify for? How do I get this? What am I going to need? You mentioned not having to have any personal guarantees or collateral pieces to that, but how are we determining who's getting this loan and how do people qualify for it?
It's a great question. So unlike the economic disaster recovery loan through the SBA that came out a few weeks ago, this one has there's no burden of proof that you were impacted by the current COVID-19. So you don't have to worry about being able to prove a downturn in revenue. You do have to certify that you've been impacted, but I think that probably applies to all of us here in small business at this point. So you have to you have to certify that you were impacted. You have to have been in business on February 15th. You have to have payroll costs, both historically and moving forward for it to apply to you. You have to be less than 500 employees. I mean, those are truly the underwriting guidelines.
So, I mean, to me, and I'm not the expert here, you are on this, but that sounds like a pretty low threshold in order to get in. It sounds like the government went out of the way to make sure that all small businesses could really take advantage of this program.
That's correct.
Okay, so low barriers to entry to get in. We talked about the amount of the money. How are we determining how much money we can take? I know you mentioned 2.5 times payroll, but what does that mean in terms of how much money are we going to be able to acquire, and what are the qualifications for that? How is that all going to be figured and calculated?
Sure. Some more specifics on that. Number one, wages are capped at $100,000 annual rate per employee, so we do have to look at that. We look at the wages over the last 12 months, we average them, and then we multiply them by 2.5. It's interesting as far as payroll costs go, things that are included that might not be, that you might not think of when you hear payroll cost. The cost of your health insurance, maintaining and providing that, as well as for retirement benefits, any match you have there. And one of the more interesting things is that it includes 1099 individuals. So if you're paying individuals via 1099, that is also included.
Okay. So when we get this, so we can get 2.5 times our payroll. When we get this loan that comes in, what can we use this money for? How is there certain stipulations about what we're allowed to use the money for?
Yes. So you're allowed to use the money to pay payroll. You're allowed to use it to pay rent, utilities, to pay any mortgage payments or debt obligations. So it's a little more broad there.
Okay. So, with the other thing you mentioned was the forgiveness piece of this loan. We can take this loan now, and in the future, in a few months from now, when the program ends on June 30th, I think you said it runs from March to June for that 4-month period. How are they determining what's able to be forgiven, and how does that process, what does that look like?
Sure. I mean, there'll be a burden of proof. We'll have to apply for forgiveness, and we'll have to prove that we spent those funds on those items that we just mentioned. On top of that, there's a criteria to make sure that we maintain full-time employees. We're not laying folks off. So there's a test there that could potentially reduce the loan forgiveness.
So my understanding is that we are able to, organizations are able to take advantage of this and get additional money above their payroll amount that they can use, as you mentioned, for mortgage, utilities, that sort of thing. But the amount of money that's being forgiven and given back, correct me if I'm wrong here, is it's just on the payroll amount that you're paying. Is that accurate or not?
It's not.
Okay, great.
It actually is. It's on all those things.
All of those things as well.
So if you pay your rent, pay your mortgage, mortgage specifically is the interest on that mortgage, not the principal. In utilities, those all count against the forgiveness.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so we got low barriers to entry. I've got my payroll. I've got my numbers. I go in and we apply for this loan. How do we know yet how we're going to get this money? How we're going to get this loan? Is it going to come to us all at once whenever we apply? Is this something that we're going to be able to draw on over a period of time? Do we have any idea yet of exactly how this is going to work?
Yeah, this is going to be a one-time funded loan. I mean, it's just going to be direct deposited in your account. We're hoping that we could start seeing, and what we've heard from the Treasury Secretary, that we could start seeing those funds flowing as early as this Friday. I certainly hope to see those funds flowing by next week.
So you mentioned that when come June 30th, we're going to have to apply for forgiveness of these loans. And a lot of that is predicated upon not reducing workforce over that period of times. What happens if we do have a reduction in workforce, either voluntary, non-voluntary? What happens come June 30th if we do have a reduction in workforce?
So helping, make sure we understand how laws are written and enacted. The law that was put into place on Friday addressed this point and did say that there would be a reduction if you had a reduction in full-time employee equivalents, but it did not specify the calculation. So we're going to wait for the guidance on that over the next couple of days. I think the general feeling is it'll be a percentage. So if you had 10 people and you were reduced by 2, then your forgiveness would be reduced by that 20%.
Okay.
But we're awaiting further guidance on that.
We've got a great question here. Any indication as to whether having foreign ownership of a company prevents somebody from taking advantage of this program?
There was no indication in the bill that foreign ownership prevents people from taking advantage. It's just that your employees must be U.S. citizens and live domestically.
Okay. So if we end up with this loan amount and we go through to do the forgiveness and there's a portion of that ends up not being forgiven for whatever reason, what are the terms of this loan? What happens to that leftover money that we've got there?
Sure, great question. So this is going to be a 10-year term loan at 4% interest.
Okay, 10 years at 4%. So how do people go about looking at this and applying for this loan? Is another question from our viewers here.
Well, so any lender out there that was an SBA lender, which a lot of the local and national banks are going to be participating in this program, I would imagine. So one idea is you can certainly go to your individual banker. You can talk to them about this program. We have tried to, obviously we've been promoting it. We put together a package where we're going to help people do their calculations, help people fill out their application, and try to get them as quickly as possible into the program so that they get funded as soon as possible. So we are here to help if that is something somebody wants, but you can certainly reach out to your local banker.
Yep. And that's a really great point, because one of the other things that Amplify has done on this is that there is this payroll protection program that's out there, but there is some other things that could potentially be taken advantage of. And one of the things that Amplify can help your organization do is figure out which of those items are really right for you to take advantage of from your organization. And so, Brent mentioned, if that's something you're interested in, don't hesitate to email us. Again, it's connect@amplifygrowth.com. Should be right there at the bottom of your screen. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer any questions about that. So, so are there any additional fees or anything like that that comes along with applying for these funds and for these loans?
So that's another thing the bill did. The bill put a provision in there that the lenders are not going to be charging fees to the consumers, but instead the government is basically rebating the banks or providing them with incentive to make these loans. So as from a business standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, there are no additional fees.
Okay. Guys, I want to remind you as well, feel free to ask any questions that you've got in here. We've got a couple good ones so far. We got plenty of time left in this stream, so if you've got a question, go ahead and pop up on there into the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer any of those that you've got. So Brent, if we could just real quick step back just from a little bit of a high level scenario here. One of the things that we do for our clients on a regular basis is help them put together the right plans and the right strategies. I know you've been staying very much on top of all of the changes and all the things that are coming down, and right now this is on everybody's mind. Surely all the stuff that's going on in the world with COVID-19, all the money that's being pumped into the economy right now, do we have any idea what the long-term effects of this are going to be yet? I'm guessing it's so far out that there's going to be some more hurdles in the future, but do we have any idea of what potential impacts might be long-term for organizations?
I have to believe that when you pump $2 trillion into the economy, that there's going to be some type of inflationary effect. Now, I think there are people that will argue against that. I think particularly because of, in the CARES Act, we hadn't talked a lot about it, but the unemployment enhancement, I think that is going to cause wage inflation, for a certain portion of the small business community very quickly. I'd say over the next 4 to 5 months. And so, we saw Sheets come out last week and go ahead and bump all their pay rates by $3 an hour. I've seen some other folks out there really increase in pay rates. Let's say employees that make between minimum wage and $20 an hour. We're going to have. I'm concerned about employers being able to get folks there to work versus just staying at home.
Right. So finding ways to keep your employees engaged, keep them active in your business is going to be very important over the next little bit as we go through this time and figure things out. We just had a lot of great questions pop up. So if you guys excuse me, I'm going to put this computer up here so I can read these a little bit better. The first question we've got, next question we have is how does the Payroll Act interact with the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Emergency Paid Sick Leave, we call that the Families First Act. And that is really what we need to think about. That is an employee rights bill. I know it was funded for the employers, but what you need to understand is that is something that your employees can elect if they've been impacted under the 7 criteria, and they can go out on leave and still request payment. The big difference here is if the business doesn't have work, if the business is going to shut down because of shelter in place, or the business is going to pull back because of reduction in sales, then really that's going to you're going to want to look more towards unemployment. In either way, if you're not paying the wages directly, whether you're getting reimbursed by the Families First Act, or if your employees are going through the unemployment, those funds are not going to count towards the forgiveness of the loan under the Payroll Protection Program.
So another really great question here is there a concern that there's going to be some businesses that won't be able to get these loans because they're going to run out of funds with this package that are out there? How do people, there's only so many resources.
So it is funny. So you hear this program was funded with $367 billion, billion with a B. And when you hear that, you think, man, there's plenty of money. But my back of the napkin math tells me that the amount of small businesses that are in the United States and the average loan size that we're already seeing with applications that we have started putting together, I believe this will run out of funds.
Yep. And so we'll have to wait to see, is there any, I think we went offline there.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It all just shut off.
We're back. Are we still back up and running?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's see if this will refresh here and make sure we're back. Here's the stream. Okay, good. I think we're back. Sorry about that, everybody.
We have a little technical difficulty.
Little technical difficulties there. So hopefully we're back up and running. Not sure what happened there. So another great question is, when does the SBA window open, and when are they going to start accepting applications to actually push through?
So the SBA is actually delegated authority on these loans. So that means that the banks and SBA lending institutions are actually going to make that decision. I think everybody is rushing as quickly as possible to nail down all the details in this process. We have enough information today that we are gathering all the information and putting it together in the applications. I'm hoping that we're going to be submitting in the next day or two. Mm-hmm. It could be another day after that, but again, we're hoping that we're going to start seeing funding by Friday.
Yep. And that's one of the other things to remember, everybody, is that this is changing. We're getting updated information on an almost hourly basis of stuff that's coming out, so we're staying right on top of it. We're encouraging everybody to go ahead and be proactive. Start getting all the stuff that you need together. That's one of the things we're doing for our clients, is going ahead and collecting all the information that we need, so that as soon as the program does go live and the applications, you're ready to go in and submit that information. Which brings up another really good question. What type of information are they needing for these loans? What should people be looking to collect and get together so they can be ready to go for this?
Again, most of the information based on the formulas in the Act is going to revolve around payroll paid over the last 12 months. as well as any medical and retirement benefits.
Um, Another really great question that's come up, and we've been hearing a lot about it recently about essential businesses versus non-essential businesses, talking about the different stay-at-home orders and the things that are there. Is there any requirement that says that for a business to be considered non-essential to qualify for the loan? So,
No, there's not.
all right, so bear with me here, guys. I'm going to read out several really great questions. I'm going to read down through these real quick just to make sure I'm not missing anything with anybody's question. Another one that got asked, which I think is good, is that which I agree with is good, is that everything that we're reading about this sounds really positive. Like there's a bunch of really great stuff that's out there. Low thresholds, forgiveness of the loans. Are we seeing any negative aspects or consequence of this? Like, where's the downside? Is there any reason somebody shouldn't apply for these loans and take care of this?
So it really took me a while to get my head around this when I first read the bill. I'm usually a person that's skeptical, and when something sounds too good to be true, it normally is. But we've poured through this. I have to step back and realize what the government's trying to do here. The government is trying to funnel funds into small businesses so they keep employees employed, so they keep people employed. The alternative for the government is that these folks go on unemployment, which is out of their pocket as well. So the short answer is it's as good as it sounds. I don't see any downsides, and I believe that generally every small business should apply. I mean, there are some folks that have such de minimis payroll that it might not be worth it, but on the whole, I think everybody should go through this program.
Another question we've got: if we use the funds for the loan to pay for sick leave, does that mean that we still will be able to offset the sick leave with the payroll tax credits?
No, you can't double dip with the same dollar.
Um, Tom asked a great question, one that we've already covered a little bit here, but do the loans require any kind of personal guarantees for the owners of the business? I think that's worth reiterating and repeating a little bit to tell everybody.
Sure. So this particular loan does not require any personal guarantees nor any collateral. One of the interesting things in the CARES Act, they actually did go back and amend the disaster recovery loans that they also do not need personal guarantees under 200,000. Something there.
This is an interesting question. If the loan is forgiven, does it get reported as a default?
It does not.
Fantastic. How do currently furloughed employees impact the funding or forgiveness?
So the period where we're going to calculate how much you are eligible for is going to be there's a couple different calculations, but bottom line, they're going to look to calculate before this event happened. So we're going to only run through February. So for most folks, it's going to be, we're going to look at the 12 months ended March of 19 through February of 2020. So anybody that's been furloughed since then won't impact the calculation of your loan availability. Now moving forward, what the loan forgiveness says is we have to spend this money over an 8-week period after the funds have been dispersed. So if you've got currently furloughed employees, and once the loan is dispersed, you bring those employees back and pay them their wage, it shouldn't impact you.
Great questions, guys. Keep them coming. Here's another really good one about industries. There's been some industries, Brent, that have obviously been impacted more than others with COVID-19. One of the big ones, of course, is restaurants. We're seeing restaurants closing down and shuttering because of the social distancing aspects and the different rules that are coming out around that. Can restaurants, being that they're closed, can they still take advantage of this type of program?
They can. Again, if we think through what we just said, you're going to look at your payroll over that time period, but you're only going to be forgiven moving forward if you're paying those wages. So if you want to be forgiven for the loan, you're going to have to pay your employees whether you're open or not.
This one's a specific question about an organization, but I think it's good to talk about overall. For this particular business, they're saying that most of their employees are currently laid off. However, if we bring them back, say on May 1st, can we get their salaries covered from May 1st through June 30th? Can we take advantage of part of that time frame that's there?
Again, the period that we judge the forgiveness of the loan is 8 weeks directly subsequent to disbursement of the loan. So I just want to be careful. So if let's say the loan was dispersed on May 1st, we brought everybody back, then absolutely you'd be covered to pay those people between May and June.
Excellent. Any more questions out there that we can answer for you guys? By the way, there will be a recording of this session that's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to come back and look at it again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On there, you'll also see some links for our Facebook page, Twitter, our website, our LinkedIn page. That's got all kinds of information coming out on a regular basis. So don't forget to take advantage of that. And also, just again to reiterate, all the changing information and all the stuff that's out there, Amplify is absolutely here to assist organizations. It's what we do on a regular basis, is help companies plan and strategize and set themselves up for growth and success. And right now, there's never been a more important time to do those types of activities. So if you're interested in talking with us about how we can help you do those things, again, just email us at connect@amplifygrowth.com. It's at the bottom of your screen down there. We'd love to chat with you and see what we can do to help you through these times. Let's see. We got one more question that popped up here. We are a small LLC company that pays commission to independent contractors or 1099 forms. What do we use as basis for the loan amount?
So 1099 payments to individuals is treated just like payroll under this act. And so you would go back, and we really need to look on a month-to-month basis what you paid out in 1099s. We need to aggregate that over the 12-month period to make sure that those folks didn't make more than $100,000, because we have to cap it there. But I would encourage you just to think about it just like payroll.
Okay, excellent. All right, guys. Any more questions that are out there that we can assist with right now?
And while we're waiting, I'll just again say that we are evaluating with our clients. We are going first and foremost after the CARES Act, but we believe that there are multiple programs that most of you will qualify for, both on the federal and on the state and local levels. And so for our clients, we're making sure that we understand all of those programs, who qualifies, and then how do those programs interact with one another. That's a big piece of what we're doing here at Amplify as well. I think I'm proud of what our company's come up with this program for $1,500, where we are giving advice to these companies as well as helping them process and the applications and do all the calculations for them. I think it's a great value. Obviously, you don't have to do it. You can go straight to your bank or financial institution if you want to handle it. But everything else you guys are handling, I think we're just really proud we're being able to offer that service, and we encourage everybody to take advantage of it.
And one more question just popped up. A couple more questions just popped up. Has there been any talk about what happens if this extends through the summer, meaning past the 2.5 months, and if you have to apply again? Is there any talk of continuation of this program if we continue to see issues with COVID-19 through the summer?
That's a great question. So we started reading the drafts of this bill before it was finalized around Wednesday, early Thursday, and the original draft of this bill covered 4 months of payroll and not just 2.5. And they pulled it back, and the reason they gave was they wanted to do a little bit of a wait and see. But there's been a lot of clamoring out of Congress already that this is not the last package we'll see. So I would not be surprised at all if we don't see a second round of this come through if this extends into May.
Okay. Stephanie's reading that sole proprietors can pull down the $20,833 if they normally make more than $100,000 even without payroll. Is this how you are reading it?
You have to run that one by me one more time.
I'm reading that sole proprietors can pull down the $20,833 if they normally make more than $100,000 even without payroll. Is this how you're reading the law?
Man, I like to look smart, but I don't think I understand the question enough to answer it.
All right, Stephanie, you stumped him. We'll have to get back to you on that one and do a little research to see what's there. So anybody else want to try and stump Brent? We can turn this into a game and start keeping score here to see how that goes. Can you apply for both of the payroll protection program and the emergency disaster plan?
So we're going to wait on some additional guidance there. My belief and the way I'm reading everything is that the answer is yes, but that the funds under each program cannot be used for the same purpose. So an example would be, under the payroll protection program, we are paying people's wages for 8 weeks, rent, utilities. Let's say you have a significant receivables write-off due to the COVID-19 outbreak. I think that we will be able to process under the disaster recovery loan program for that loss.
Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to leave it open for just one more minute just to see if there's any last lingering questions. Again, this video is going to be posted up there. We're going to be doing more of them, so you can always check back in. For those of you also who haven't seen it yet, on our website, amplifygrowth.com, one of the products that we offer our clients on a normal basis is a business intelligence platform that gives them all kinds of great live customized information about their business. We have taken that technology and we've pointed it towards information about COVID-19. So if you go to our website, amplifygrowth.com, right at the top of the page of the banner, there's a link that takes you to the dashboard we've built. It's tracking all of this information about the spread of the virus from Johns Hopkins. There's a page there that talks about specifically about North Carolina information that we've pulled from multiple sources. And there's also a tab about the financial impact. It's tracking all the markets. It's got links to different news outlets and stuff. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you jump on amplifygrowth.com. Check out that dashboard. It's a great example of the technology, but it's awesome to have all of that information, the critical stuff you need, just in one place right there for you. I think we're good. Brent, any final thoughts on anything you want to add before we wrap this up today?
No, we're here to help. I mean, we're trying to keep track. Everything's still changing daily. We're still gonna get more guidance in the next couple days. So, like you said, just stay in touch, watch our videos, give us a call if you need anything.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful questions today. Appreciate your participation. Watch out for our channels and everything for the next one that comes up. As always, please stay safe out there. We're reminding everybody to always be kind to each other. It's crazy times. We're all in this together. But thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.